Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. In today's video we're going to be making one of our bud vases for you. It's a very simple form, but it's much more complex than it looks, and I'll be breaking down the whole process for you. So let's go ahead and head to the studio, we can go ahead and get started. So today's piece involves us using cane. So the first thing we have to do is we have to create the cane, and we're going to go through a process called pulling cane. When we're pulling cane, we basically take glass color, which comes in the form of these rods right here, and we're going to stretch it across the room to create these kind of long striations and lines. You can pull cane in many different ways. You can twist it or just do basic simple cane. Today we're pulling what's called veiled cane. So we're going to place our color bars into this pickup oven, and then we'll preheat it to about 1,000 degrees. The glass will eventually get much hotter than that, but we have to preheat it to that kind of lower temperature so that when we move it over to the bigger oven, nothing cracks. So now I've got a solid pipe in my hand, and I'm going to get a small bit of glass out of our furnace right here. This furnace is 2,000 degrees on the inside. It's 2,160 degrees is what it's set to, and it holds about 700 pounds of clear molten glass. The furnace houses exclusively the clear glass, so we add the colors after we come out of the furnace with our clear. I'm going to use that little bit of glass kind of as like a glue bit, and we're going to put that right on the tip of one of those rods now that they're nice and hot, and then we're going to transfer it over to our bigger oven, the glory hole, so that it can get really hot and start to become molten.
That's hilarious.
So today we're pulling white with lagoon on top of it. So the white is going to be our core, and then we're going to add that lagoon, which is kind of like a greenish blue color on the outside. The white color is very stiff compared to the darker color, right? Glass absorbs light just like everything else in life, right? If you're going on a run, it's hot outside, you want to wear a white t-shirt so that it reflects the light. Instead of a black t-shirt, you'll get a lot hotter because black absorbs the light much faster than the white does. So we use the white as a core so that we can have some stability whenever we pull it, but then we also will wrap that color in the lagoon, the darker one. We want to take this glass, the white color, and we're going to stab it right onto the iron, right? I don't want there to be any separation between the white and my pipe, so we just stab it straight on, right? Sometimes whenever we pull it such a far distance that the clear that's in between, if I was to set this up a different way, just with like a bar that had clear on it that was attached to the white, the clear would stretch and stretch and stretch. So it's not what we want. We want the white to be really what stretches, so we just attach it straight to the iron.
1 second. There we go.
So this is my brother Luke. He's going to get a little bit of glass out of the furnace on a smaller pipe, and then he's going to pick up that lagoon color. We're going to start to prep it so that we can wrap it around that white.
Oh, that's the one you picked, huh?
So right up here is where the temperature kind of matters in our coordination, right? I want my white to be very, very stiff, and I want his color to be very, very hot. So he's going to take a lot of heats, and I'm going to take a few less heats. We'll really start to let it cool down after I shape it into the right shape. And that way, I have a nice stable base to be able to wrap that color around. I don't want them both to be really hot.
Here, I'm going to take a flash. Minor Arctic craft show, do that stuff. Travel, YouTube content.
All right, so now I think we have our temperatures right about where they need to be. His glass was a little bit colder than I wanted it, which is why we have that kind of big chunk in the middle. That's completely okay, totally fixable. But we're going to wrap it around the middle of my glass, and then here in a moment, I'm going to stretch it across the white so that it kind of looks like a hot dog, is what it always reminds me of. But we're basically just going to try to really sandwich that white right in between the two colors. This is also one reason that I really want my core, the white part, to be really cold, right? Is because I'm pushing around that darker color, and the more that I heat it up, the more the middle is just going to want to move. So I wouldn't have any stability if I had let it get really hot. So I only have a small window of time to be able to stretch that glass all the way across the white without the white heating up and just flopping around on me. So we've got everything kind of assembled correctly, everything's right around the same temperature, and now we're going to coat it in another layer of clear glass out of the furnace. Whenever we get glass out of the furnace, we call it gathering. So right now I'm gathering a little bit of glass, and the only thing that I can kind of liken it to is if you were going to take like a toothpick and try to collect honey on the tip of it. That's kind of the only comparison that I can think of. So you can see here that the outside layer is very, very hot, and the inside is much colder compared to that. So we're letting all of the layers kind of even out. Before we gather out of the furnace, we make sure that the core of glass that we're sticking into it is nice and cold so it doesn't just collapse on us when we stick it into the furnace. And now while it's nice and hot, I can really manipulate it with my newspaper tool. This tool is about 12 sheets of newspaper folded up and soaked in water. And from here, we're kind of just prepping it for our big pull, right? So I'm going to use my marvering table, this thick metal table right here, to cool the glass down as well as just shape it up. So I'm trying to make it into a nice cylinder, kind of a tapered cylinder to the, you can see that taper right around where the pipe goes into it. But that's the plan. We're going to smush it down a little bit and really turn it into a nice cylinder so that I can then stretch it across the whole studio.
People to be the drawer. But for me, it's like that could be a really good opportunity if I worked with multiple people, you know what I mean? Because I could get...
So we're getting pretty close to our desired shape, and now my brother is going to go get another layer of glass out of the furnace, which this is going to be used as a post. So he's going to come over to the same marvering table, and he's just going to flatten it out right here with gravity. It's a pretty simple thing to do, but we basically just want a nice little solid post so that I can stab the glass onto it, and then we'll be able to stretch it using that as leverage. The tip of the glass gets really hot sometimes, almost too hot, so we dip it in water right before the pull. We'll do it right here too. And then I'll stab it onto that post that my brother made, and we'll be able to stretch it onto those wooden ladders that we have on the floor. So when you do that first initial pull, you're basically just trying to decide the diameter, right? The middle part of it freezes up much faster than the areas that are thicker and they stay nice and hot. So I can pull it to a certain diameter, and then in the moment I need to be able to realize that that's how big I want it to be, and then I pass it to my brother and I start to walk away to really thin out the rest of it.
All right, we can go down. You got room?
All right, so that went really well. I really enjoy pulling cane and using cane in my work, so this is something that I've done quite a few times. But I really enjoy just going through the process of making the materials. It's half the fun for me. So now that we have our long length of cane, we can chop it up into smaller segments, and then we can take those, we'll lay them on a pastorelli plate, which is basically just like a ceramic plate, and then we can roll it up onto a blowpipe, and we'll be able to make our vase with it. People always ask, like, can you buy the cane? Do you have to make it? You really want to make it yourself, at least in my opinion, because you can make it in many different ways. If I want it to be thicker, if I want it to be more saturated with color, there are lots of variables to go through. So, in my opinion, always make your cane. You know, it's part of the craft. You got to learn how to do it no matter what. So we preheated the plate that we put it on. It's probably around, same thing as before, about 1,000 degrees. And we're going to let all of this kind of heat up before we put it into the glory hole so that it can start to become molten. So my brother's going to take a few heats on this, and all of those canes will start to really fuse together and create a small plate. Now while he does that, I'm going to make what's called a collar. So I have a hollow pipe this time. This is a blow pipe, and I'm going to get a small bit of glass on the end, and I'm going to basically create like a small ring on the tip of my blow pipe. You'll see me come out. I'm going to hold it vertical and let all the glass kind of fall back onto the pipe. And then you're going to see me blow a bubble straight through the pipe. You'll see this small bubble come out here in just a second. So we have our thin bubble, and we're going to put it back into the furnace. All of that's going to melt away, and then we can have the whole of the blowpipe exposed on the end, which creates that kind of ring or like a collar around the tip of the blowpipe, which is exactly what we want. So the glass is really hot right now, and I have a small amount of time to manipulate it to the correct size so that I can take this collar and roll up all of those canes into a nice cylinder around it. And that is basically what's going to give us our pattern in the end. So you can see Luke has the canes pretty hot, and he's going to push these together with his tweezers so that we know that everything is nice and fused together. There's no gaps, it's not going to break or anything whenever I try to roll it up, and you'll see him flip the plate around quite a few times because the burner in our glory hole is only on one side, so you have to make sure it's evenly heated throughout the whole thing. So now I'm just making sure that it's the right size, and we're going to use that pie divider, which is that kind of V-shaped thing on the table to my right. It takes the length of the canes and then divides it by pi to give me the size of the circumference that I need my collar to be. And now everything's the right temperature, so we'll just roll it up. All right, so that was great. That went really smoothly. And now we just have a small gap where the two ends are supposed to come together. So I'm going to put the tips of these together, and then we're going to make sure that there's no other gaps in between any of the other canes and make sure it's nice and solid.
Last night? I made some of these bottles. Yeah, that's why I wanted to make one today. I really enjoyed them, and I made them solo. I'm taking a dive. He's playing WoW. Tim's a diehard WoW fan.
When did you see him playing WoW?
He was playing WoW the other day. He has a Tauren fucking. I know exactly. Homie.
Yeah.
Alright, so everything's fused together, we're nice and hot, and now I'm going to use my jacks to do what we call a termination. So I'm using the blades on these jacks to be able to make a small incision right at the end of the canes. And it's basically going to cut off that open cylinder, so now it's encapsulated, which basically creates a bubble in the middle. And that's the main reason that I had to make sure that there was no glass over the tip of my pipe, too, when I was making my collar, right? Is because now that everything's encapsulated, I can blow through my pipe and it will inflate the glass. These canes have lots of grooves on the outside of them, right? So what we're doing now is I'm trying to smooth out the outside so that we can prep it to go back in and get another layer of glass on top of it. I don't want there to be any ridges or divots or dents in it, because when I plunge this back into that 2,000-degree pool of molten glass inside of the furnace, whenever I turn it, it's going to pick up bubbles on any area that's not smooth. So before we gather, we always make sure that the surface is as smooth as it can be. So we're going to go ahead and get that next layer of clear out of the furnace, and you'll notice here in a second I'm going to do something a little different. This is what we call a strip gather. So I get a lot of glass out of the furnace, I hold the pipe vertically, and we let any extra glass just kind of strip off. So this way I can kind of pick how much glass I really want to be on there in the end. So on this gather, I only want there to be a very thin layer of glass. We'll get another gather a little bit later, but this one is basically setting up our pattern. So from here on, we're basically just getting ready to spin these canes. The vase we're making today is going to have some very, very tight lines that basically create a really nice spiral. So now I'm using my jacks to put a small handle on the bottom. I'm just going to put a small incision here, and in a moment you're going to see me dunk this in the water a few times, and we'll get ready to use this as a handle to twist the rest of the glass with.
Last little quench. Don't be me asking me or mine for nothing.
Yeah, don't ask me or mine for nothing.
So the handle's nice and cold. I've made sure the back area is really hot, so now I can grab onto it and twist, and I'll have my brother Luke blow through the pipe to inflate it as well.
Go a little harder. Off.
So we got a really nice twist out of it. That looks great. And now I'm going to use my jacks to terminate the part on the end that doesn't exactly line up with the pattern of the rest of it.
Off. Thank you. There we go.
All right, and now we've basically created our pattern, right? So we're pretty far into the process. I would say after we pulled cane and now that we're actually here, we're probably about 40 minutes in, maybe a little bit more. So, you know, this stuff can take a little bit longer than it seems. You know, a lot of it is really about setting up our pattern and what we want to do with all of our colors. And from now on, we're basically just blowing glass. So we're going to create our final form now.
It's supposed to help with like your thinking to have like savory 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after you're awake. It's like your brain comes to expect like more.
So now we're going to go ahead and take that last gather. Just a little bit more information about the furnace while I'm gathering. It stays on 24/7, so anyone can come in all the time and blow glass whenever they want, and it's been on for about the last 5 years, so I think it's a really cool piece of machinery. And with these strip gathers, we can basically throw all of this clear glass back in the furnace. So once we fill this bucket up of clear glass, we'll just throw it back in and it'll melt and we can use it to make more work. So now we have that last gather, and I'm going to use this wooden tool, which is called a block, to really smooth out the outside. This tool lives its whole life in water. It's made out of cherry or apple wood, and it really helps to cool down the outside while the inside starts to heat up. So now we can start to inflate the piece to make our final shape. So I'm going to use my newspaper tool to cool down the bottom, and I'm going to have my brother blow into it so we start to really inflate the center area.
Blow a little harder. Off. Reached in, and I reached in too closely to the door and dragged my arm across the corner.
So this vase kind of looks like a bottle before it turns into its final shape. So what we're going to do here in just a moment is we're going to prep it so that we can pull the neck on the piece. That's kind of the term of the move that we're going to do. So I'm going to heat up the back area, and then here in just a moment, you're going to see me take my jacks, make a small incision, and kind of pull away to create a long neck.
We're getting another dog too.
We got a king like first thing.
Yeah.
And we had like a small room too. It like didn't fit, but we were like, you know we're gonna get a king.
Light air on. Off. Toss for it again.
I couldn't imagine a queen, honestly.
Blow again. Off.
All right, so that went really well. That move can kind of go sideways very easily, you know. If I don't pull at the right time, if I let it fall off center, it kind of corkscrews on me. So there's a lot of things that have to go right. So now while everything's still hot, I'm going to put in our jack line, which is basically a small incision right off the tip of the pipe, and that's going to be where we disconnect it from this one once we transfer it to a different pipe. So we're basically deciding the line that it's going to break on once we do our transfer a little later in the process.
I was like, you do what?
You do what?
What? You don't use a pillow? Well, no, I have two. Oh, okay.
And now I can use my newspaper tool to manipulate the bubble to the end shape that I kind of want it to be, just the bottom half. We're not going to worry about the neck right there. I'm just going to worry about inflating that kind of spherical area to be just the right size. And then here in a moment, you'll see me take a wooden paddle and we'll start to put the bottom on it.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That's the name of the game. You can blow. Blow, blow, blow. Off, stop. Blow again lightly. Off.
Oh yeah, there it is. What kind of punny?
Just a regular dumb punny is fine. You can go ahead and grab it. Go ahead and grab it. We need to move on. Or trim it.
Now we're going to get ready for that transfer that I was talking about before, right? So my brother has a solid pipe in his hand with a small bit of glass on the tip. This is what we call a punty. So he's going to cone it up so it has a nice little point on it. And then here in just a moment, I'm going to stab this onto the bottom as symmetrically kind of in the middle as I can, kind of right in the middle, which that went really well. And now I'm going to apply a little bit of water. Once it's cooled down a little bit, I'll apply water to the area that I want it to break from. And then we'll have it flipped over and transferred onto the new pipe. And now all I have to do is give the pipe a little tap, and we're good to go.
You can actually flash it.
So that went really well. You know, the punty transfer can kind of be an anxious moment in the studio, right? If things get too cold or they're too hot, you know, if things don't, you know, get stabbed on or put in the right place, it's just a little stressful. So that went really well. And now I have a small amount of time to make sure that the bottom is nice and flat, and we can start to heat up the rest of the piece so that we can start to do the final manipulations. So this move I'm about to do is called trimming. So there's some thick glass right around the area that we broke it off on, and I want to get rid of all that. I want this to have a nice thin lip on it. So I heated it up a lot, and I'm going to use my tweezers to really kind of pull it out. And now we'll use our jacks, put in another jack line just like before, and I'll be able to tap off that extra glass here in just a moment. There's a few different ways to trim pieces and get rid of that extra glass. This one is called the jack and crack.
I'm scared of like falling when I walk in the bathroom.
I just needed to get rid of. Is Corey around?
Yeah, Corey.
Here, can you tap this, Luke? Thank you.
All right, so that was great. You know, if my punty's too cold in that moment, it'll really break. So you have to make sure everything is just the right temperature before you go for that final move. And now we've heated up that area that we just broke off, and I can start to open it up to the final shape.
So you don't eat breakfast before you come here? No. I wake up like right before just hop in the bar. I think I was 5. Oh shit. I got up at 7:35.
I hate that it gets dark so early. Can't stand it.
Yeah, I like that. The sunrise should be at like 5 a.m. every day. I think. Looking good. I like that. I think the lip actually did an awesome thing where it folded in on itself.
It did. It got a, yeah. See the funny crack? Go on. Off. Okay, we'll do that one.
To film one of them.
Go on. Push. Alright, off. Go on again. Sorry, I just want a better angle. That's great.
30.
Alright, that's it.
Cool, you want me to...
All right, and with those last few moves, we're basically done with the piece. You know, the last thing we have to do is we just need to disconnect it from the pipe, and we'll transport it to our annealer so that it can cool overnight. So now we just have to add a little bit of water to the tip of the connection point, being very careful not to get any water onto the bottom of the piece. This just helps it want to really disconnect from the pipe. We're going to knock it off into my brother's tongs, tap the pipe a few times. We'll take a small torch and get rid of any sharp spots from the disconnection, and then we can take it and put it in our annealer, and we're all done.
I think there's room on the left, but it's like the way left. Yeah. That's fine, Perfect. Woo!
And here's our final product. You know, I love these little vases. They're so simplistic. They're so pretty. They're just fantastic. I love making them. And guys, if you're interested in purchasing one of these, you know, the holiday season's right around the corner. You can check out the description box down below. We've got a link to them. We have them in a few different colors as well. And check out our other social media platforms. You know, we've been doing a lot of Twitch streams lately, so check those out if you're into live glass blowing. And thanks so much for hanging out with me today. You guys be safe out there. We'll catch you in the next one.